Another round of snow is approaching Washington State, and the National Weather Service has issued a winter storm watch. Today we're going to talk about some of the possibilities and who I think is going to get hit the hardest. The national blend of models shows a lot of the area getting snow with bigger snow totals further north, but there's a bit of uncertainty just how far north the rain-snow line is going to go. Here's looking at the areas the National Weather Service has issued their winter storm watch for, from Whatcom County all the way down past Tacoma. Looking at the infrared satellite imagery here, we can see the storm approaching the coast. Where exactly this low goes is going to determine who gets the most snow totals. Go ahead and let me know in the comments what you're hoping will happen with this storm and how much snow you got the last time. This product enables us to look at how much precipitable water is in certain parts of the atmosphere. You can see our impulse of moisture beginning to come in right here as this short wave moves towards the area. You can also see all the dry air associated with the Arctic air bottled up in British Columbia and some of it seeping down into Washington. But right there you can see that nose right there riding along the Arctic air come into Washington State, and that's what's going to bring some snow to the area. It's going to be riding this boundary of Arctic air and warm air out over the Pacific, and just how far north it goes is going to determine just how much of this warmer air it's going to pull up into Washington State. So here is looking at our uncertainties. So here, the European model shows the low coming in to the North Washington coast there, a 1016 millibar low, and then it goes across the Olympic Peninsula and across the Seattle area and then dives down to the southeast. So if that low does indeed come in further north like that, it's going to wrap some warmer air around it counterclockwise and up the I-5 corridor. But just how far up the I-5 corridor that warmer air gets is in question. Meanwhile, on the north side of the low, it's going to remain all snow most likely, and for areas just east of it as well. Looking at this a little bit more closely, it begins spreading snow into the area this evening. And then as we go into the night, the snow begins to get a little bit heavier. It brings warm air up into Tacoma early this morning, switches it over to rain. By 4 a.m., it's flirting with switching Seattle over to rain. And then by 7 a.m., it has Everett kind of getting a mix of snow and whatnot. And then by 10 a.m., it cools it back down. And then we get all snow again as the low passes us, and then we cool off and get maybe a little bit of convergence zone activity on the backside. This is looking at the Canadian model. It brings it into a similar position as the European, but maybe just a touch further to the south. Looking at the European model here, it's just a hair stronger, and it pulls a little bit more warm air further north up the I-5 corridor, where the Canadian model is just a little bit weaker and doesn't pull quite as much warm air up the I-5 corridor, and it brings a little bit more snow to the area. This is looking at how far north the Canadian model brings that warmer air. It brings it up to about the Snohomish County, King County line, maybe nosing into places like Monroe. But looking at the European model, it brings warmer air way further north, in through most of western Snohomish County, up across Camino and Whidbey Island. And looking at the GFS here, the GFS brings the warm line way further south actually, down up to about maybe southern Seattle. Doesn't get up to Everett. So we'll have to see which models win out. I'm kind of leaning towards maybe the European, but there's also a chance that the models are overdoing the scouring of the air. Looking at the NAM3CAM, it also brings that low in a little bit further north towards the North Washington coast, then bringing it kind of southeast across the I-5 corridor. But it has that rain-snow line stopping right there by about the Snohomish King County line as well. Doesn't switch it over to completely rain in places like Everett. But due to the fact that it does get warmer, it keeps the snow ratios down in Snohomish County. Places like Everett possibly get 3 to 5 inches out of this. Lake Stevens maybe 3 to 5 inches according to this model here. And Arlington, it has maybe 5 to 6. Mount Vernon, maybe 4. The San Juan Islands could get a lot of snow out of this according to this model, maybe 5 to 8 inches. And then out there by Port Angeles and Sequim, you guys can get a ton of snow according to this model if it is correct. Looking at the HER, it brings that rain-snow line all the way up to the Everett area and then brings it back down as snow again as the low passes. There's a chance that where the models are showing it being all rain could remain snow for a longer amount of time or the whole time. And again, looking at the national blend of models here, the national blend of models is showing quite a bit of the area getting some pretty impressive snow totals. Seattle, it shows getting about 5 inches. Everett shows getting 6 to 7 inches, even more out by places like Lake Stevens and Granite Falls, Arlington. So there's a chance that depending on how this low comes in, that it could overachieve and it could produce some big snow totals. There's also some very big bust potential if warm air does make it far enough up the I-5 corridor and could cut back those snow totals quite a bit. The mountains, of course, are going to get tons of snow, possibly 2 to 3 feet piled up at the passes, and eastern Washington is going to get included in the snow as well, with a bit of a snow shadow just to the east of the Cascades. And it is also going to get cold as this storm passes by, with highs throughout much of the I-5 corridor being in the mid-20s, and then lows on Thursday morning could possibly be in the teens on the I-5 corridor and below zero east of the Cascades. But again, the National Weather Service has issued that winter storm watch, and that goes into effect this evening through tomorrow evening. And for some of the lowlands, they're calling for 2 to 7 inches of snow. So keep that in mind. All right, folks, thanks for watching this video. I will talk to you later.